Do you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. First of all, welcome into this church. This is a former church that our organization acquired a few years ago, and we turned it into a center for migration studies where we have our conferences, our whatever. Any person in Cuggiono that wants to tell his story, we give him the possibility to do it. And on the walls, you can see that there is the story of Italian immigration. We tell, unfortunately, the history of Italian immigration. It's still in Italian, but there are many pictures that you can understand. Also on the sides, you can see a lot of books that we have acquired through the years. And I'm pretty sure that we have a Val di Giusto shirt, I'm sure, because the people have been coming here for a long time. And I want to tell you one thing. The presentation that we're having today is different than the other ones. I want to be honest with you. I normally have all kind of stuff that I acquired about Genoa through the years. But unfortunately, I live in Milan, and my studio is about 40 miles from Milan. And recently, I had a complex surgery on my right eye, a cataract that gave me a lot of trouble. So I couldn't drive for a while. So all my stuff is over there in my studio. But I still have a lot of stuff in my computer, so I've made up, this time is a different presentation. Now I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my connection with Genoa. First of all, as I said, my name is Ernesto R Milani, and presently I live in Milano. I graduated a long time ago with a thesis about mutual aid societies in North America. And from that time on, which is a long time ago, I developed an interest about, and I did research, and I still do, about Italian immigration, all kinds of Italian immigration. But there is one thing, there is a but. My first encounter in North America was with the reports of the Dillingham Commission that was done in 1910, and at that time Theodore Roosevelt was president. And while reading the reports, I got involved with small Italian rural settlements in the States. And so Genoa was the first one. So at that point I said, what's this? I mean, Genoa, Wisconsin. And since they're talking about the Lombards, I got more interested into that. And that's why I went eventually I went to Genoa in 1979 and also in 1987 to find out what it was. Then, of course, I did other things, and right now I'm involved with Italians and peonage in the cotton plantations of Arkansas and Mississippi. But Genoa is still in the back of my mind. And this is why when Bill came to Cuggiono or got in touch with us, at that time I find out that we had a few families from Cuggiono that had emigrated to La Crosse. Actually, it was not La Crosse, it was La Crosse, the first point of destination. But they were going to Genoa, so we're talking about the Berra and the Garvaglias. And then there were some Garagiolas, and then there was a Spezia, but the Spezia eventually went, re-immigrated to Olvine in Ireland. And why the people from Cuggiono were going to Genoa? I don't think I have to explain what happened to Genoa because that's your place, but why people from Cuggiono stopped in Genoa. They stopped in Genoa simply because they were going to Stillwater in Minnesota. They were going to St. Anthony to work in the log camps. They are not, but they stopped in Genoa and they saw some people they could talk with them because they had more or less the same dialect, and they decided to stay there. So, where did the people from Cuggiono go? The first people from Cuggiono left here in the 1870s. They worked to build the East Bridge in St. Louis. Then the largest immigration started at the end of the 1870s. We talked about Stillwater, Minnesota, but we talked also about Herrin, Illinois, the coal mines, Springfield, Illinois, Iron Mountain, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, Clifton, Moraine, Arizona, Silver Bowl, Montana, Wilburton, and Luty in Oklahoma, to name a few. And we're talking about five. We say five, maybe even more. 5,000 people that left Cuggiono. To give you an idea of how it was, the census of 1911 had 5% of the population born outside Cuggiono, in the States or South America. And we have calculated that in 1911, about more than 10% of the population of Cuggiono was either born in the States or had been to the States. So that's how this phenomenon went on. I think I've told you most about the preamble of this. If you have any question, I'm here. Otherwise, we'll start. No question.
I have a question. Oh, you said Old Wine, Iowa, so people from Cuggiono went to Old Wine, settled there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, okay, yes.
So I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Was it whole families who migrated, or was it just men?
That's the other question. No, it's normal. At the beginning, they were all males. Simple males, just males that went to work, and they went to find out how it was. Their idea was to make money, return here, and since normally those people were not capable or couldn't afford to buy land, or let's put it this way, the landowners did not sell them land. They wanted to buy some land, have a house, and that was the idea. The thing is that most of them, after 10 years in the States, going back and forth or not, they returned to Italy. But the money they saved was not enough, because things had changed. It was not enough to support the families, buy a house and have a piece of land. So what they did, most of them returned to the States and recalled their wives. So you see in the passengers list, you see hundreds of these people that went to the States after 5, 6, 7 years. Called their wives. Sometimes there were children born in the States and sometimes born in Italy because they were going back and forth. And that was it. So at the beginning they were just maids, and then they called all the girls. Or in many instances, the men that were in whatever place, in those years there were combined weddings. So they call the family, and they say, I want to get married. So they got in touch with some ladies that were willing to go to the States, and they just went. And these girls went to the States. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. My understanding is that they knew that those weddings had to work. Yes?
The Irish came over because of a famine. Was there something specific that brought the Italians over here, anything that happened?
Let's put it this way. I understand what you're saying. See, Cuggiono, for instance, had landowners. We're going to see today with the Villanoni. Villanoni was the landowner who had almost 80% of the land here in Cuggiono, but he lived in Milan. He didn't live here. So the only activity they had was to maintain what the landowners had. They didn't invest in agriculture and stuff like that. And so people couldn't buy the land. So we're talking about sharecropping. So people didn't have money. Didn't have money. And the only money they got was through the work of the silk mills. But the silk mills were active only certain times of the year. And of course the seeds were good, but basically they made money for 3 months. Then there was no money around, it was just a sharecropping. So, and some people went to Milan, but Milan, there was no train from Genoa to Milan. So what happened, in those years, we're talking about the 1880s, when the states were growing, and even in South America, because many people went to South America. States were growing, they needed manpower, cheap manpower. And so we have to go back a little. We're talking about after the Civil War, what happened in the States? Very easy situation. They started to expand towards the West. And West was extensive growing in everything. Italians had intensive growing, small plot. So all the surplus grain that they had in the States was sold to Europe. So the Italian grain had no value, and the ships that were used to carry the cereals from the States had to go back as ferry to the States. That was no good. So in those days, when they're starting to need people to work in the coal mines and in the foundries, especially in the Northeast, well, they filled all the ships back with immigrants. So people came all over. Let's say all shipping lines were represented in all over Europe, and there were all kinds of people that were scoring Italy. Naturally, we're talking about some of them were legal and most of them were illegal. They came to Cuggiono, and you see the shipping list, the shipping list, and you see, what's this? I mean, you see 5 people going to La Crosse, 10 people going to Detroit, 20 people going to Harran. It means that these people, these recruiting agents came to Cuggiono. They had a list of people, of the people that were needed in different areas, and of course they sent them to whatever destination they needed. And in many instances, I also had the reports of people that arrived in St. Louis and were convinced of remaining in St. Louis, but things had changed in the meantime. So we're sent to Detroit, or maybe to Harran, or to Springfield, Illinois. So that's what happened in those days.
Were the Italians accepted in those early days, or were they discriminated against? Like
Italians are still discriminated in the States. It depends on what you're doing, on how strong you are. I mean, if there are many Italians, they're not discriminated. If there are only a few Italians, they are discriminated. This is part of the world. I mean, this is what the man does. It says, no, it's of course, it's not as bad as it used to be. And then there is a difference between the way Italians were treated in the South and Italians were treated in the North. In the North, there is a difference. But don't let's forget that, for instance, when you're talking about lynching, one of the most important lynching was in 1891 in New Orleans, and those were not blacks, those were not Afro-Americans, whatever. They were whites. Of course, whites of a certain kind, but they were whites, and they were Italians. So Italians were lynched all over, and even during the Second World War, Italians had difficulties when they were prisoners of war, especially in Washington State. So I wouldn't go into this. It's a very bad situation. In fact, I just back from a couple of years ago from Mississippi and Arkansas, where I had to deal with peonage, and Italians lived with peonage, exactly as that was done towards the blacks, and exactly as was done, for instance, in Africa, from the Arabs in Zanzibar against the blacks in Senegal, or the blacks on the Comores going to Reunion where the French were ruling. So it's an extensive, yes.
So by peonage, do you mean slavery?
Peonage is basically what we call the lata schiavitù is slavery depicted as something different, something else. In other words, going to this, what happened to the Italians? That they were offered the passage from Italy to Arkansas or to Mississippi. And when they were in these plantations, the plantation had only one way in. There was no way out. So they had to repay their debts. But at the same time, repaying their debts meant that the cotton they produced was just produced by them, but they didn't have the possibility to sell it, to sell it. So and the seed that was very important, that was very valuable, they couldn't sell it. They were forced to work to buy in the company store. There were no other places. So everything, they had to pay for the doctor, they had to pay for the priest, they had to pay for the church, for the school. There was always something to pay for. And in places where malaria was rampant and people died. So that's a long story, but we just skip it maybe later on.
Thank you.
Now we go back to Genoa, Wisconsin. Of course, I mean, I know some people say Genoa, we say Genoa, that's it. And incidentally for you, I mean, most of you are probably connected with baseball or football rather than soccer, but the first Italian team, the first Italian soccer team was the Genoa Football Club in Genoa, Italy. So that was the first one. So. Anyway, that's it. Now let me drink a little bit.
Worse than that.
Yes, exactly.
They were different. Yeah, well, I mean, if they somehow escaped, they wouldn't be
That's true.
returned. You know, they could just blend into the population. Yeah, they were property that could be sold. So they were only linked to that one plantation. I mean, for the person, it was still, it felt the same.
You can see that. Do you recognize the place? Okay. You can see this is, you probably have seen this before. This is Mount Ridge School. And we're talking about a school that existed in the 1880s and went up to 1949. I don't know if any of you have seen it. Okay, this is Mount Ridge School. I don't know if you ever seen this picture before. This is the Riverside School in the town of Bergen. This was built in 19 40, and went up, closed in 1962. Yeah. This is a panorama of Genoa, early days, of course. This is early days in Genoa. I don't know if any of you knows Michael Pedretti.
Yeah, brother here.
Your brother? Ah, great. That's nice. Michael Pedretti is a very interesting person. No? Well, you agree. I mean, okay, in fact, for people, for some of you who don't know about him, about Michael Pedretti, he is the person who has written, the writer, who has preserved the heritage of Genoa, Wisconsin, and keeps writing books about Genoa. And since I've been to Genoa and I've talked with people all around, I believe that this is very extraordinary for the Italians to have a writer that is a normal person. Is not digging into fake situations. He's just telling the way it is. And is really representing a way of life that is gone forever. Did any of you read Michael's books, aside from that? Okay, great, I'm glad. And what do you think about his books? Any comments about his books? Just good, is it just good? Okay. Yes.
It documents the family.
Okay, that's a good. Yeah.
Yes.
This is the other book of Begetters of Children. You don't have to read all of that. That's something that I copied, but if you want, I just had a couple of minutes so you can read it. I'm very pleased about Michael, because, for instance, in Cuggiono, we have a lot of things written about the emigration from Cuggiono, but nothing so vivid about the families. And if I'm just saying, if any of you after or before have read Willa Cater, My Antonia, or maybe or even Sonora Bed, that sometimes is put after Steinbeck's Grapes of Red, and we're talking about the depression and also the living in a situation, in a Western situation that is normally is not known about the Italians, especially about the Italians of Northern Italy. One of the things that really is interesting about Michael Pedretti, because see, I understand, in the 1890s they were already talking about the disappearance of anything Italian in Genoa, Wisconsin. Yeah, of course, many things have disappeared, but still there is a character. For instance, I find it quite amusing that 150 years after, because we have to talk about 150 years after, almost 200 years, we're still talking about resort. It's a simple word, resort. The resort tells you everything. Over here, I mean, when I grew up, a long time ago, I mean, I didn't even know that past existed. For me, it's only resort. And not risotto, resort. So that's great. Okay, this is another interesting situation when I found out that there was a button factory in Genoa that you might have heard about. And this is the area of Giovanni Venere. In fact, I have to call Christian Venere later on, because as I was telling his possible relative, We have a veneer that immigrated here from Campodolcino, and he would like to meet the veneer of Genoa. Okay. This is the Genoa depot. In fact, it's very interesting that in Genoa there was a train depot. And this is Main Street, Genoa, in those days when we're talking about the 1890s here. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, I'm not working with my computer, so okay, and this is Genoa Bay that you might recall. And that's another book by Michael Pedretti, The Life of Peter, which is quite interesting. And for people who don't know anything about Genoa, or would like to share with their children or whatever, this is quite interesting because there are some excerpts from the Dillingham Commission, from the reports of Alexander Kanchen, tells the story how it was, and the first settlement by the Montes, and tells why the people from Campodolcino and from Valchiavenna went to the States, and their relationship between the Lombards and the Italian Swiss from Maiorolo. Okay, this is a church that you probably know better than I do. Catholic church dedicated to St. Charles Borromeo. And how many of you have read the book of Agnes? Okay. And how did you like that? Okay, but I like that too, yes. That's very interesting, and I think that Michael that did a great job in highlighting the life of a person that represents all the women in Genoa. Incidentally, the person that I had contact with in Genoa, I wonder whether you knew her, because I lost track with her, was Sister Loretta Penchi and Sister Curti. Did you ever heard of Sister Loretta Penchi? Yes, okay. She's still alive?
She is still alive. That's my great aunt.
Okay. In fact, I visited with her in Genoa, and then I went to Campodolcino with her and Sister Curti in 1987. Time to journey home, so this is for you probably a journey home. Then I'll ask questions to you too. Okay, now we're talking about the bearers. Where's the bearer? Right there. Okay, these are the people from Cuggiono that left for Genoa. We're talking about Maria Baroli and Antonio Berra that immigrated to Wisconsin in 1880. Antonio and Maria the year next with the children. And this is the family. There's some children were born in Italy, and some others were born in the States. And all the descendants are still all around Genoa. We have here Maria Baroli Berra with daughter Sofia Guanella, because of course they married different people. Guanella from Campodolcino. You probably heard of this Beato Guanella. And here again we have Spezia Baroli, and these are all from all the people from Cuggiono. And as you see from their dresses, these pictures were taken in Italy. Okay, this is the Pereire, to give you an idea of the ships. They traveled in those days. The Pereire was the ship where the Garagiola left in 1880 for New York. These people left from Le Havre. They didn't leave from Genoa. Most people in those days left from Le Havre because the people were afraid of traveling on the ocean, and they preferred to stay on the train for a few days. And on top of that, the ships, in this case French ships, were much better than the Italian ones. This was the Ferdinand de Lesseps, another ship that was used in the 1880. Some of you remember Ferdinand de Lesseps. He was involved with the opening of Suez Canal, and he was also involved with the Panama Canal, but that was a failure for him. And as you see here, Maria Baroli arrived in New York on the Ferdinand de Lesseps on January 22, 1881. And on top, you can see Berra Maria, age 34, wife, and you see La Crosse. Can you see La Crosse on the right-hand side? Maybe yes, maybe not. That was the final destination, which is their final destination. This is a Genoa wedding from Sofia Berra and Luigi Guanella, and then their 50th anniversary. This is, I don't know if you know this lady, is Lisa Berra Koch. She's from, she now is a biologist in Genoa, Wisconsin. Madison, Wisconsin. And she is one of those who returned to Italy to find her roots. And I helped her with genealogy in certain instances. Very good situations when people start coming back to see where they come from. Okay, these are some pictures of whatever they are that I took when I was in Genoa in 1979. This is the farm Don Curti, and that was a view into the valley from Don Curti's farm. I'm sorry, yes. And this is a general view along the Mississippi River that you might have seen. And these are some of the clippings that I have somewhere in my studio about the life and what was going on in Genoa, Wisconsin, which I followed for a while. The small school that survived. Or in this case, this is a picture taken from the book written by, there was a report by Alexander Canci in the 1880s. There is the Labiolo, which is you might have heard or might have seen Labiolo's Zaboglio's hardware store, and the house of the first Italian immigrants. And this is another view of from Alexander Canci's book, the first Catholic church before it was remodeled, and the parochial school. What's interesting is that in a place like Genoa, one of the things that was interesting as far as the maintaining of community life was concerned was the fact that people should go to church also, but should also go to school and learn English. That was the language that they were supposed to use in their everyday life. This is a picture that I had from a Trussoni family, and was quite interesting also for me to find out that in Genoa they grew tobacco. So this picture was taken probably in the 1930s. This is the Trussoni farm that was 1979. And these are other pictures of the Trussoni family, and of course you have to tell Bill that I showed this because it's, taken in the 1930s. And these are articles about the changes that took place in Genoa, Wisconsin, because Genoa did not remain what it was. And articles that were written all over. This is a picture of the cemetery. And I don't know if any of you have read the book by Daniele Trussoni. Trussoni, okay, I don't know if you've seen it. And this was that was interesting because this this book was one of the first article that I wrote in 2006 in an Italian magazine, and it was quite interesting. I'm still in touch with her, and that's quite interesting. In a place like Genoa, there are people like my friend Lisa Koch, who's a biologist and artist. There is Michael Pedretti and Daniele Trussoni, and of course all of you. These are the pictures that I took about the Zaboglio store and the Catholic Church in that day, talking about 1987. This is a picture of the Catholic cemetery that I wandered around. And this is again the Church of St. Charles Borromeo. And this is me. In circa 1987, it's a little bit blurred, but you can see the difference between Cuggiono and its cement and all the landscape here. This is again the farms in 1987. We're talking, this is towards the dam, the panorama of Genoa. And this is the old house where Loretta Penchi lived, the family lived, that I took in 1987. Sister Loretta Penchi. And here, you know, wild turkey. Are still around wild turkeys in Genoa?
Yes.
Still around, eh? That's good. In fact, I tasted wild turkeys. That was something different. Never heard of wild turkeys. Great, great. This is a farmhouse, and this was Zaboglio before it was sold. And this is the big river inn, a meeting place in Genoa. Incidentally, I just showed a picture that I got on Google Map about Genoa to my son. My son is different because he takes pictures and he likes abandoned tennis courts. And he found, he just spotted an abandoned tennis court behind the river inn. Who's from Genoa here? You, right? Yeah, okay. I got your address, so my son will, well, because he likes to take pictures of the abandoned tennis courts and know and find out the story about them. So, if there is a story. Now it's I understand it's an overflow parking lot for the river inn. And this is Mr. Berra. No, Mr. Berra inside the river inn. This is a general view of Genoa. This is again Zaboglio store with the church. And this is Mrs. Gilbert Guanella, Emma Tursoni Guanella, that you might have met, because the people there were still in 1989. And I had some correspondence with Father Edoardo Penchi, that you might have heard about him. He was a missionary in Veracruz, Bolivia for a number of years. And this is again Genoa. This is the Pedretti gas station that you might have seen. Genoa and the Mississippi. And this is me with the Genoa population, 267 in those days. I was different at that time, yes, I was different. This is when I was in Valchiavenna, homecoming. I was very happy to take Sister Curti and Loretta Penke to the land of their forefathers by the trip. And these are some newspaper clippings that I collected through the years about Zaboglios, about the book My Land, My Home, My Wisconsin that you might have seen, where there was the Barilani had a farmhouse for over 100 years. Then we have always been there is the proceedings of a conference in Annapolis that I attended a few years ago, and I delivered my paper that some of you might have read, and it was about the Guscetti brothers during Civil War. That you can still find it in internet. I saw it on the internet, so it's, and so it was published about, and I think that your brother Michael read it and got the idea of writing some other books about it, because he mentioned that to me. It was very nice. And here are some other newspaper clippings about Genoa and the history of the St. Charles Parish. And here are some books, one by Paolo Via that you might have known, that is in Campodolcino. And of course, there is a postcard sent to Bill and Rose Trussoni. Make sure you tell him about this. And I don't know how many of you are aware of Father Samuel Mazzucchelli. Okay, great, somebody knows about it. Father Samuel Mazzucchelli was a Dominican missionary born in Milano, and died in Benton. Benton is about 100 miles from Genoa, where there still is one of the colleges that he founded, Cincinnati College.
The nuns have moved away from Cincinnati.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all being sold as a community college now, you know.
Things changed.
They went farther into, I think it's in Illinois where they were from, that group of nuns. So sadly, that campus is changing.
Okay, and Father Mazzucchelli, I'm glad about this because it's, still, it would be interesting for some of you to go to Benton on their way to Madison or whatever, and stop by the cemetery where there is this tomb dedicated to one of the first missionaries that today are a little bit contested. They are not. People don't like the way they did, but there is one story about this that I will tell you right away. Father Mazzucchelli, the house of the family, the mansion of the family is still in Milano, downtown Milano, close to the Duomo. Went to the States, and he was in Illinois, in Wisconsin, and in Iowa. And he was everything. In other words, he was a missionary. He helped people, and he helped construct a lot of churches, old churches. He wrote a book that he published in Italy when he returned for the only time to Milan to visit the family. This book is basically you can find it it's impossible to find. There is only one library in Italy where you may consult it. It's a book where he has the maps of all the Indians or the Native Americans that he visited in Wisconsin and Iowa. And he also has a story of the time he met Smith, the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he had some bickering with him, as a matter of fact. This book was published in 1984, and I tried to find it for a while. Then, after many years, one day I was in this used, as you say, in a flea market. I was in a flea market, and all of a sudden, I see this book that had a hardcover, a black hardcover. And I opened it and they closed it right away. I says, "What's this?" "This is Summer Mazzucchelli. This is following me." Then I just loitered around a little bit. Then I saw the person who was in charge of the stand, and I said, "Well, I bought a couple of books," and I said, "Well, I get this one also." And he says, "Yeah, okay, yeah, it's not covered, but okay." I think I paid $5 then. That book today is valuable. I still have it because it tells me the story of Samuele Mazzucchelli. And my wife would like to sell it. If you look in Amazon, it's $3,000. But I will not sell it. I will not sell it. Okay, this is the end of all this. Is the long. Yeah, we've got good time, and I hope you're not, bored yet.
No.
Now it's my turn. Questions later on. What has always interested me is not is also the fact that there is Genoa. There's still people living in Genoa. And how's your sister, by the way? Oh. Of course, Michael told me that he was going there. Oh, I see.
So that was
Okay.
Margaret.
Okay, just sorry for that. She was 90, yes, she was. She said, "I'm going there." Where does Michael live? Because I don't know.
Michael lives in Williamsburg.
Virginia.
Virginia.
In Virginia?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was in La Crosse or something. Oh, in Virginia also.
Actually, I live in California now. We grew up in Genoa, of course.
In California, where in California?
Fresno.
Oh, Fresno, oh, so nice, Fresno, great. Fresno is very interesting. Have you ever read William Sorolla?
Yes.
Yes. Sorolla, the book is dedicated to the Italians in Fresno, the Armenians in Fresno. I picked grapes with them. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, Fresno, it's great. In fact, in the cathedral in Fresno, there is a fresco by this painter of Leonardo Pozzola. His name was Busatore. And this guy, Busatore, was immigrated to San Francisco, and then he went all over to California and painted, and he frescoed everything. Then he made money by painting the portrait of the Archbishop of Los Angeles. Made so much money they returned to it. So we have a person from Fresno, and who's from Genoa, and he lives in Genoa and goes to church in Genoa every Sunday. Nobody. Nobody, yeah? You?
No, I have a question.
No, first I want to know. No. Who lives in La Crosse? Somebody in La Crosse, at least. La Crosse? Oh, here's somebody from La Crosse. Okay. And Wisconsin? So but this is nice. This is interesting because this is what we talk about all the time when we talk about Cuggiono. We don't have a community except on the hill of St. Louis. Detroit, there are no Italians any longer. They're all scattered all over the state, Michigan. Illinois, they're all over. So it's what we call diaspora. And what we're trying to do in Cuggiono is to have somehow put all these people together, so that we already do this. We have a format for when they come over here. We had a group just the other day. They come, and we know exactly what to show them, what to do for them, and they ask all the time for citizenship, especially for citizenship. But it's interesting one of the things that really interests me is the fact that all these people that are born in Genoa or even across, how did they fare? What did they do? And what's their connection with Genoa now or with their roots? So here you are. This is like a laboratory. I mean, we're talking about California, and where are you from? Oh, you're together. Where are you from?
Arizona.
Where? Oh, that place that you mentioned that I forgot.
Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Oh, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You?
Warden Springs, Minnesota.
Okay.
Birchdale City.
Yeah.
Birch Lake.
Yes.
And he's got pictures of the better in the cemetery at St. Bernard's Church.
Frank was great grandpa born in
Okay.
1830.
Yes, it is. Because when you're talking about that immigration, Monty started everything in the homesteading in January 1932. So, yes.
1903 and built the farm.
Yeah. Okay. You?
Janesville, Wisconsin.
Oh, Janesville, Wisconsin. James was from Janesville. I think I met somebody from Janesville the other time. Phoenix? No, that's nice. I thought you liked the good weather. Yes.
We're from La Crescent, Minnesota, which is right across the Mississippi River from La Crosse.
And what's the name of the place?
La Crescent.
Oh, okay.
Minnesota.
Okay. Because when talking about Minnesota, it's funny because I have some pictures here. Now, I have a Levy family, and there was a Trussoni, but I'll tell Bill another time. A Trussoni that from Italy, eventually they emigrated to Genoa. But from Genoa they went to Stillwater, Minnesota, because many people from Genoa might have gone to Stillwater, Minnesota. Then from Stillwater they went to St. Henry. La Sur.
The peas.
Pardon?
They had peas. The solar peas.
Sure. Okay, I know. And that's interesting because I have all this. I have a lot of stuff that I got years ago from this lady who lived in Nebraska. And there were a lot of people from Cuggiono were already in Stillwater. So there was this connection between Genoa, St. Henry, and Stillwater.
Big state president. Stillwater.
Where are you from?
Sacramento, California. Sacramento.
Oh, Sacramento. Oh, yeah, nice.
Married.
Yeah, nice place. Just for your information, just to mention, sometimes people are afraid to ask, but I got married in the States. I got married in Dayton, Ohio, and I used to work for TWA. So then I went to other places and finished my career in the airlines with Air Canada. So, and I've been to the States, almost to all the States, 449 times.
Did you marry an Italian girl?
Yes.
That sounds like maybe
Yes. I want to tell you one thing. My children have an American passport. So, lacrosse, great. Lacrosse is very nice. Let me see where all these people are, because you are the Vener. Where are you from? Okay, Monty. Okay. Oh, Tucson.
Minneapolis.
Oh, Minneapolis.
So we have Rivera, Bonells, Sonny's,
Okay. Minneapolis?
St. Paul.
St. Paul. Have you ever seen the immigration history research center in Minneapolis? Ever heard of that? Study.
I'm from Florida.
Florida? Where from Florida?
Just north of Orlando, between Orlando
That wasn't any place.
Deltona.
Daytona. Oh, Deltona.
Philadelphia.
Oh, you're the guy from South Philadelphia? Tucson, huh? Tucson. Say Tucson. Oh, Genoa. And what do you mean? Oh, Sacramento. Sacramento. Sacramento, very nice place. Okay. Sudbury, Wisconsin, never heard of that. Nice. Okay. Madison. Nice. Lake Meadow. Where are you from? Where are you from? Oh. Last time nobody knew but this is quite close.
I wonder if there's a large images. I wonder if
I just wanted to tell you one thing. I don't know how many of you are baseball fans. Are you baseball fans? Good. Name me, tell me a name of an Italian-American baseball player. Yogi Berra. Oh, you know Yogi Berra. Did you know Yogi Berra was from here? So the parents of Yogi Berra, Joe Garciano. Joe Garciano. Yogi Berra's parents were born here. Not exactly in Cuggiono, I have to be careful. In just about 3 miles from here. But you know, it's another place, and you have to make sure you don't. And we are trying to value Yogi Berra in a different way. In other words, we like to make him a sort of an icon here in Cuggiono. It's very difficult. We tried a few years ago, but baseball is not our bag. Let's put it this way. And we have all kinds of things. In 2015, Cuggiono, the city of Cuggiono, sent me to Montclair, New York, where there is the museum. And I gave Yogi Berra the honorary citizenship of Cuggiono. And I've been following that for years. And people said, well, next year. I said, listen, he's 90 years old. And we should do it now. So I'm glad we did it in 2015, May, it was May, because he died in September. And I'm still in touch with his family, with Lindsay Berra, his granddaughter, who was very interested in portraying his grandfather. And we tried, this is just to say, we tried also to give the honorary citizenship to Joe Garagiola. But Joe Garagiola at that time was ill. And I don't know, I mean, it's talking about Phoenix, those damn places down there in Arizona. I mean, we didn't something didn't work. In other words, the family was not that, was happy, but only up to a certain extent. Whereas for Yogi Berra was great. I met him because he was, was 90 years old. But I stayed at the college for 1 week, so I had the possibility of meeting many players, or getting a lot of books about baseball, which I still don't understand, but that's another story. And that was nice. So Yogi Berra, we still like to have him as our friend, especially in immigration. But then there were other players beside Yogi Berra. Of course, there are nothing. There are nothing. Yes.
So, did you say Yogi was born here?
No, he was born in the States.
He was, okay.
No, he was born.
So his parents immigrated
His parents immigrated from here in 1927. And in Malvaglio there still is the house where the family lived. Not many direct relatives, but still there. Yes.
That picture you had, you said it was a Berra in '87.
Yeah.
Are you sure that wasn't Joseph Pinky?
Could be, I don't know.
I knew all of Berras in Genoa at that time.
You could go to see it again?
Yes.
Yes.
It's got to be my wife's.
That's interesting, you're correcting, that's good.
I'm there, back on.
This one?
That's Joseph Pinky.
Joseph.
Yeah.
And he was your father? No?
Uncle. He was never married. Joseph was never married.
And was he related to Sister Pinky?
Yes.
Okay, because Sister Pinky introduced it to him. In the meantime, I want to say that I'm sorry, I take this opportunity every year to talk with the people from Genoa, but then you see, life takes you different to other roads, like you. You've gone a lot of places. Yes.
Did you have any connections with the Curtis?
Curtis, no.
No.
I have no connections with anybody in Genoa except Lisa Cole.
Okay, because we worked with the sister DeSeals, Curtis, from Genoa. He was a pharmacist.
I have a copybook here, and if I can get later on your addresses and maybe convey some thoughts, I don't know. What we're going to do here, we were talking about this the other day with the mayor in Genoa. We have a sister city tie with Harry, Illinois. That is, it's doing well. And we have students basically coming here, some people go there. And in Villa Noni, I probably won't be able to see, but there is a plan to convert an area which is now unused into a sort of a library, document center, where we can preserve everything that deals with immigration from Cuggiono, from nearby cities, and from Lombardy, whatever. You can see all these books that you see around. I have a library of about 3,000 books about immigration, plus pictures and
Does your wife want to sell those?
badges.
Does your wife want to sell those too?
No, I have that in my studio.
Yeah.
No, I have it's a separate house.
That's how it works, yes.
Separate house, that's where I was born, still there, I bought it. I bought it and I have all my stuff there. Yes.
What did you do for the airline?
I was working in commercial. I dealt with travel agencies. I started working at Marquesa Airport in them days.
You've done a lot. You're very worldly.
Yeah, and being with an airline was also easy to travel, easy to go, easy to meet people also around, coming in, coming out, getting stuff here and there. So it's, yes.
Was the immigration from Cuggiono primarily through Ellis Island?
Nearly all of it. Nearly all of it. There were not many people who went to Canada, and not many people went to Philadelphia or New Orleans or California. Some, but not many into Boston. But the majority was into actually, talking about the Minnesota. Have you ever heard of Ely, Minnesota? And Eli?
Oh, yeah. I all the Italian miners.
Okay. Eli, Minnesota is interesting. There's a copper mines right there. Okay.
Iron mines.
And in 1914, the 28th of May, 1914. What was happening in Minnesota is that people did not go through New York. People from Minnesota, talking about these particular people, they used Canadian Pacific ships. In other words, in those days, Canadian Pacific was an important line because they had a mixed transportation between from Yokohama, Japan by ship, Empress or whatever, Empress of Canada, let's say. The Empress of Canada would go into Vancouver. Then from Vancouver, the people would catch the train all the way to Montreal and Quebec. Then from Quebec, they would take the Empress, whatever Empress, and go all along the St. Lawrence, all the way to Southampton, England. And then from England, the people would go into Europe. Mr. Egildo, and what's his family name? Egildo was not there. Anyway, there were these two people from Turbigo, which is a nearby city here, who left Ely in 1914, just a couple of years after the Titanic, and they went all the way to Quebec on the Empress of Ireland, Egildo Braga. And they arrived in Quebec, and they boarded the Empress of Ireland. All along the St. Lawrence River, they were basically hit by a Norwegian coal ship. And the Empress of Ireland basically was hit to the point that 1,000 people died in half an hour. It just took half an hour to fall. and 200 or 300 people were left. The thing is that there was a period that was just before the First World War and right after the Titanic. So nobody talks about this, Empress of Ireland. And Egildo and his wife, Egildo and Carolina Braga survived. Somehow they survived, except that their child, Rino died through the. So and they were saved. They went eventually to Southampton and returned to Italy. So that's very quite talking about. And what's interesting, somebody was talking about how these people got married and so forth. And Egildo and Carolina Braga got married through pictures. Egildo was in the line and Carolina was in Tobago. So somebody sent a picture, the family sent a picture, said, okay, you like, yes. And I remember that the daughter used to tell me, says, how did they get along? So I said, yes, arriving there was like, in the Italian dialect, it was like was like embracing a tree. Embracing the tree.
You know about Ely, Minnesota?
Yes.
It's damn cold.
Yeah, in fact, there is from my friend Kevin. I have a friend. Kevin sends me pictures. So is the moon. I don't know. He sends me the moon all the time. And might have been cold. I mean, it's good. I mean, cold is much better than being Phoenix on 110. No? So this Empress of Ireland is never mentioned in the history book. Never mentioned. And more than 1,000 people died.
How they died?
Oh,
Probably died right away.
Probably it was north of that.
No. And it was very close to see, the difference between the Titanic and the Empress of Ireland is that the Titanic took about 2 hours to sink. The Empress of Ireland sank in 20 minutes. Can you imagine 20 minutes? Empress of Ireland.
Ireland, I-R-E-L-A-N.
Ireland, yes, Ireland. All the ships were Empress of Canada, Empress of United Kingdom, Empress here, Empress there. Even the airplanes were Empress.
What year was that?
1914, 29th of May.
Prominent names that went to the Iron Range.
Pardon?
Prominent last names of people that immigrants that went to Ely and to the Iron Range. Couples with names.
Braga, just all these.
How about Vespa?
Vespa? Vespa is abruzzese, from Abruzzo. But just watching the census. There are some people from Genoa also.
I know some people from that area, but I don't know what they were.
There was a Milani. My friend in the is Kevin Milani. M-I-L-A-N-I. But we have no relationship.
St. Lawrence?
Was it on the St. Lawrence that the ship sank?
On the St. Lawrence River.
Okay.
And the reason, and it's the same reason. People wanted to go on the St. Lawrence because it appeared very safe. It's just, a big river, large river. And before hitting the ocean, they had to go all the way up to the Gaspésie, and then so the ocean crossing was just maybe 4 days, no more than 4 days. So it was short. People were basically afraid of going to the sea. A lot of people did not return to Italy because they didn't want to face the ocean. This is what I found out many times. Some people didn't have money, some people didn't have this or that, but being afraid of the ocean was one of their fears. Are you all, is everybody happy?
Yes.
Great. Now I can see that Genoa is basically left alone. Maybe it should migrate to Genoa. Instructions. It's risotto is being cooked. So by the time we get to the place, risotto will be ready. Oh, by the way, I didn't ask if any of you has problems. I mean, dietary problems. No, so you can eat everything. No, by the way, do you eat all American, or do you have some Italian dishes? No, but talking about the States. Well, you can. Okay, so now you're going to Campodolcino. And how long will you be gone in Campodolcino?
2 weeks.
Oh, in Campodolcino?
Yes.
How do you do 2 weeks in Campodolcino?
Go to Lake Como.
You go around.
Yes.